Listen carefully, because this story might not stay up for long. Between high-powered legal teams on the West Coast and platform algorithms that tend to bury uncomfortable content, the window to hear the facts straight can close quickly. Save this, share it, if you think it matters. We're stepping away from the blurry photos, the heated social media arguments about moon bumps and prosthetics, and all the online speculation that has dominated timelines for years. That's not what this is about. This is about something concrete. A documented court ruling from a British courtroom. In February 2026, High Court Judge Paul Matthews presided over a case involving a 9-year-old boy named Henry and a substantial $157 million inheritance. The decision didn't just affect one wealthy family's trust fund, it revived a centuries-old legal principle, roughly 325 years old, centered on the idea of a child being born of the body. Those 4 words are now back on the table, formalized in the public record under a judge's signature. Why does this matter beyond that one family? Because the same ancient legal language sits at the heart of Britain's rules of succession. It determines who has the constitutional right to the throne and who can legitimately use the titles attached to it. For years, anyone raising straightforward questions about the official story around a particular royal birth faced intense pushback, labeled a conspiracy theorist, smeared, or threatened with legal action. But the ground has shifted. When a sitting High Court judge rules that a child born through surrogacy may have uncertain legal standing under pre-1970 inheritance laws, it moves the conversation from internet speculation into established case law. The old tactic of simply dismissing skeptics as crazy just got a lot harder to use. The same principles that governed that 9-year-old boy's inheritance case also apply to the line of succession. That's not fringe commentary anymore. It's precedent. Now, powerful institutions are often quick to demand ironclad proof and credible witnesses when challenged. But in this case, the most direct testimony comes from the individual himself. In his own best-selling memoir, a book that shattered publishing records and was translated into multiple languages around the world. Take the official timeline of May 6, 2019. Palace statements said the couple's first son was born at 5:26 a.m. at a hospital in Westminster. Yet, according to the father's own published account, just 2 hours later, they were already leaving through an underground car park, heading out quietly. The rest of the story continues to unfold under scrutiny of long-standing rules that predate modern public relations. The law, as this recent case reminds us, doesn't bend to carefully managed narratives or emotional appeals. It follows the paper trail and the precedents on the books. And right now, those precedents are speaking louder than they have in a very long time. They slipped out of the hospital like any other new parents, bundled up their newborn, and headed straight back to their private home, well before the palace press office had even drafted a public statement. Then the official announcement finally dropped, beamed out to millions of well-wishers around the world. It said, in the present tense, that the Duchess had gone into labor early that morning. A royal baby was on the way, except the baby had already arrived. By the time the world was told labor had started, the child was already born, wrapped in a blanket and safely tucked away behind closed doors. In his own memoir, Prince Harry openly admits to the ruse. He describes, with what reads like casual amusement, how they deliberately told the press his wife was still in labor even though the baby had already been delivered. He basically boasts that they pulled a fast one on the media, notes that reporters were furious when they found out, and refers to the whole thing as a necessary tactic to keep people tuned to the show. Let that word sink in. The show. This wasn't the season finale of a reality series. It was the birth of a child sixth in line to a 1,000-year-old throne, a genuinely historic constitutional moment. Yet, the father himself framed the deception around his son's arrival as little more than good broadcast strategy. He put that confession in a 400-plus page hardcover book and then went on a global press tour to promote it. At this point, it's almost an Olympic event for them. Lie, confess to the lie, then try to spin the deception as charming, rebellious spontaneity. It's a masterclass in gaslighting. They cast themselves as victims of a ruthless media machine while simultaneously admitting they were the ones writing the fake script and handing it out. Here's the problem, though. Once you voluntarily admit you deceived the public about something as basic as the timeline of your own child's birth, you forfeit the right to demand blind trust on everything that follows. True privacy seekers stay silent. They don't issue coordinated, knowingly false press releases to news outlets worldwide, turning a royal birth into a theatrical cliffhanger designed to toy with people's expectations. So, the central question becomes unavoidable. If they were comfortable casually lying about something this fundamental and easily documented, what else got the same treatment? When the very foundation of the story rests on a proudly admitted falsehood, why should anyone trust the pages that come after it? The answer may lie just 30 days later. On June 5, 2019, exactly 1 month after the birth, someone walked into a government records office and made a quiet but striking change. A birth certificate isn't a press release or a magazine photo spread. It's the foundational legal record of a person's existence. For the British monarchy, it's constitutional bedrock. You don't amend it lightly. Yet that's exactly what happened. The mother's given names, Rachel Meghan, were completely removed from the document. They were surgically erased, leaving only her royal title. Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. Her legal human identity was wiped from her own child's official public record. Think about that, in ordinary terms. Imagine walking into a government office and demanding that your first and middle names be permanently deleted from your baby's birth certificate, replaced only by a formal title. In most places, that request wouldn't even get past the front desk. If you walked into any government office and tried to change someone's name on an official birth certificate just because it fit your personal brand or aesthetic, they'd laugh you out of the building or call security. You can't rewrite legal history on a whim. But that's essentially what happened here. And when the press got wind of it, the whole thing exploded into a full-blown royal scandal. The moment the story broke, much of the media framed it as a deliberate slight, a petty move by Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, to set herself apart from Kate, who had kept her full name on all 3 of her children's birth certificates without any fuss. The response from Team Sussex was swift and fiery. Their spokesperson put out a sharply worded statement accusing the palace of forcing the name change on official documents back in 2019. It was dictated by the palace, the statement said, pointing the finger squarely at senior royal officials. They insisted neither Meghan nor Harry had requested it. The language was pointed. This wasn't described as a simple paperwork error. It was presented as the monarchy strong-arming a private legal document against the couple's will, casting them once again as victims of an overbearing institution. This time, though, the palace didn't respond with its usual dignified silence. Insiders quickly pushed back through the Telegraph, stating flatly that the change didn't originate from the royal household at all. According to them, it was handled by the couple's own private staff in London. In other words, somebody ordered the change, but no one wants to take ownership of it. That's where things get serious. You now have 2 completely contradictory public statements about the same legal document. Both can't be true. A birth certificate doesn't edit itself. A real person had to request it, approve it, and file it. So one side is almost certainly lying in an official capacity. Either the palace secretly altered a citizen's birth record against the parents' wishes, which would be an enormous scandal, or the Sussex team ordered the change and then issued a formal statement falsely blaming the palace to cover their tracks. In any other context, whether a corporate boardroom or a courtroom, falsifying records and misleading people about who authorized what is called fraud. What's especially telling is that, despite years of explosive interviews, a glossy 6-part documentary series, and a 416-page memoir, the couple has never explained why the name needed changing in the first place. Kate didn't alter anything on her children's certificates. No drama, no competing narratives, no media wars. When you're simply telling the truth, you don't need to rewrite documents or spin elaborate stories. Viewed through cold logic, this isn't just tabloid fodder anymore. It's a bright red flag. If they're willing to go to war with the press and the palace over deleting a name on a birth certificate, what else on that document are they so desperate to obscure? The implications go far beyond optics. They're striking at the very verification systems that underpin the monarchy itself. But let's step back from the legal chess match for a moment. There's another group that's been largely overlooked in all this: the public. Millions of people around the world woke up early, tuned in with genuine excitement, and celebrated with real goodwill. They bought the souvenirs, watched the coverage, and wished the young family well. In the process, many feel their trust and intelligence were insulted, spoken to through the camera lens as if they wouldn't notice the contradictions. You sent them your heartfelt congratulations. You thought you were watching a genuine modern fairy tale unfold, a beautiful new chapter in royal history. They took that empathy, that innocent goodwill, and they weaponized it. Your basic human decency became little more than a disposable prop in a carefully choreographed, multi-million-dollar public relations machine. When the illusion finally cracks and you realize the warm, inspiring story you were sold was actually a tightly staged production, the feeling that replaces the curiosity isn't mild skepticism, it's betrayal. And betrayal is a very hard thing to forgive. To grasp just how much was kept from the public, it helps to look at what real transparency actually looks like. Take the Duchess of Cambridge. 3 times, under enormous global scrutiny, Kate walked out onto the steps of a busy London hospital with reporters and cameras everywhere. She did her duty. The medical bulletins for all 3 of her children were signed by the attending royal physicians, made public, verified, and beyond dispute. Yet in their polished documentary, Meghan looked straight into the camera and insisted that even arranging a simple photo call outside Portland Hospital was impossible. Let that sink in. The same woman who helped orchestrate a multi-million-dollar royal wedding, watched by billions, somehow couldn't manage to step outside a private hospital for 3 minutes. This points to something even more serious: the complete bypassing of every traditional constitutional safeguard. These royal birth protocols aren't about feeding tabloid gossip or entertaining the public. They exist because a child entering the line of succession to the British throne must have ironclad, verifiable proof of who was born, when, and to whom. That's the foundation of a 1,000-year-old institution. But in May 2019, what did the public actually get? No photographs on the hospital steps. No signed medical bulletins from attending physicians. No independent witnesses. No traditional notification to the Privy Council. Just a rushed, factually shaky press release and the father's word. And as we've seen, that father has openly admitted he's willing to bend the truth if it keeps the spotlight on. Of course, the defenders immediately cry privacy. They just wanted privacy, they say. It's a convenient defense, but their own choices have shredded it. Open Harry's 416-page memoir. If privacy was the real priority, that book never gets written. He shares intimate details about the delivery room, inhaling his wife's laughing gas, ordering fast food chicken to the suite, the electric candles, the hymns playing, the framed photo of his mother by the bed, even the purple birthing ball. He's more than happy to monetize the most personal, vulnerable moments of their lives for the world to consume. He'll discuss frostbitten body parts, teenage drug use, and takeout orders without hesitation. Yet in hundreds of thousands of words, he never once names a single medical professional who witnessed the birth of a child sixth in line to the throne. He even acknowledges the protocols in the book, confirms they were bypassed, and presents that absence as some kind of refreshing victory. When someone records every minor detail of the room, but deliberately omits the one piece of documentation that would constitutionally validate his child's place in the line of succession, that's not an oversight. That's a deliberate, fortress-like silence. And it's that calculated silence that has set the stage for the serious legal and constitutional questions now closing in. When you're staring at a wall of silence like that, you have to listen to the few professionals who were willing to speak up despite the threats of legal retaliation. The ones who noticed the glaring inconsistencies, gathered the evidence, and brought it into the light. In this story, there's one name in particular that sends a chill through those who built their empire on carefully constructed narratives. Let's be clear about who we're actually talking about here. Tom Bower isn't some gossip columnist, chasing clicks, or a podcaster stirring the pot. He's a highly trained barrister and a veteran investigative journalist who spent 26 years at BBC Panorama. He's written more than 25 meticulously researched books and is widely regarded as one of Britain's most formidable and effective investigative reporters. His track record speaks for itself, and it's remarkably consistent. When Bower went after media tycoon Robert Maxwell, documenting what he said was massive corporate fraud, Maxwell denied everything. His lawyers threatened to ruin Bower, and many people dismissed the claims. Then, Maxwell died, and the full scale of the fraud was confirmed. Bower was right. He spent years investigating Mohammed Al-Fayed, exposing troubling patterns in his personal behavior and business dealings. Al-Fayed fought him every step of the way with top legal firepower. After Al-Fayed's death, a 2024 BBC documentary largely validated Bower's reporting on decades of alleged abuse. Again, Bower was right. Then there was Conrad Black. Bower laid out serious financial misconduct. Black sued him. Years later, Black was convicted and sent to federal prison. The pattern is hard to ignore: denial, legal threats, time passing, and eventually the facts catching up. Bower has an extraordinary habit of being vindicated. So when he published his deeply researched 2022 book, raising serious questions about the official Sussex narrative, particularly around Harry and Meghan, their team quickly dismissed it as biased establishment fiction. But given Bower's history, many are now paying much closer attention. That brings us to a remarkable court ruling in Bristol on February 6, 2026. The Marquess of Bath went to the High Court seeking clarity that his 9-year-old second son, born via surrogacy in California, could inherit from family trusts worth $157 million. It seemed straightforward. The boy is biologically the Marquess's son, but it wasn't. The judge, Paul Matthews, examined the old trust documents, which used traditional pre-1970 language like heirs of the body. He ruled that there is significant legal uncertainty about whether a child born through surrogacy qualifies under that wording. The biological reality, confirmed by DNA, didn't automatically override the strict, archaic legal framework. Now apply that exact logic to the British monarchy. The rules governing succession to the throne rely on the very same ancient common law concepts and the 1701 Act of Settlement. During debates on the succession to the Crown Bill in 2013, lawmakers explicitly addressed the surrogacy question. The government's position was unambiguous. Only a naturally born child of a husband and wife can succeed to the throne under common law. The implications are striking. The two young children, currently 6th and 7th in line to the throne, were born in California via surrogacy, under circumstances that remain largely private, with limited independent verification. A High Court judge has now confirmed that children in precisely this situation occupy legally uncertain ground under the kind of language that still governs royal succession. In a private family trust, lawyers can sometimes petition a court to fix these issues. But the line of succession isn't a family estate. It's part of Britain's constitutional bedrock. You can't quietly amend it with a judge's order or a clever legal workaround. A senior British court has now put on the public record what many had previously dismissed as mere conspiracy theory. When it comes to surrogacy and old heirs of the body language, the legal questions are real. And for the monarchy, those questions go straight to the heart of the institution. The Sussexes have reached the edge of a very steep cliff, and the entire carefully constructed illusion is starting to crack. For a long time, the conversation has centered on aristocratic titles, ancient constitutional rules, and the traditions of the British monarchy. But let's cut through all that and get to what actually powers the operation in Montecito. Cold, hard cash. The titles Duke and Duchess of Sussex are no longer just ceremonial honors. They've been turned into valuable corporate brands. Nearly every major deal they've struck, the big streaming contracts, the podcast agreements, the lifestyle brand, the production company, depends on the perceived legitimacy of their royal connection. They're monetizing their proximity to the throne. The problem is what happens when that proximity comes under serious legal challenge. A recent High Court ruling has made a formal inquiry into the line of succession not just possible, but plausible, especially for the couple currently sitting in the 6th and 7th positions. If a court ultimately determines that their constitutional standing doesn't hold up under the strict rules of British succession law, the fallout won't stop at embarrassment. It could trigger a full-blown commercial disaster. Every contract built on that royal status could suddenly be open to challenge. What started as a public relations headache could quickly turn into allegations of commercial misrepresentation. In short, a brand built on what one judge just undermined could collapse like a sandcastle at high tide. Here's the documented timeline that has led to this moment. These aren't rumors. They're matters of public record. Harry openly admitted in his best-selling memoir that he and Meghan manipulated the timeline of their child's birth to keep the public engaged. The birth certificate was amended 30 days after the event, sparking a public finger-pointing match between the couple's team and the palace. Standard royal verification protocols, hospital photos, signatures from the attending royal physician, independent witnesses were all notably absent. And now, a High Court judge, in a separate case involving $157 million, has highlighted how a child born via surrogate would have uncertain legal standing under the very same 325-year-old succession laws that govern the crown. A man who was willing to publish 416 pages detailing his drug use, personal grievances, and intimate physical complaints has never produced a single piece of independent medical evidence to secure his children's place in the line of succession. That silence isn't about privacy. If clear, straightforward documentation existed, It would have been released years ago. The absence of it suggests something more serious is being protected. So the question that remains is straightforward. In what looks like a multi-million-dollar constitutional deception, who do you see as the driving force? Is it Meghan, a woman so determined to achieve global fame and total narrative control that she was willing to bypass centuries of royal tradition? Or is it Harry, a resentful husband so consumed by his grievances against his own family that he was prepared to trade away his ancestral heritage for a public relations war? There's little room for ambiguity anymore. The legal and documentary record is out in the open. What do you think really happened here? I'd be interested to hear your take.